Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theater and star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century,
no one would have believed in the middle of the 20th century that human...
No one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century.
No one would have believed in the early years of the 21st century.
I believe there is a reason why, with each adaptation of H.G. Wells' original War of the Worlds, the opening monologue remains largely the same. Just like the tale of fear and invasion that it precedes, the narration is timeless. Whether being vocalized by Orson Welles, Cedric Hardwicke, Richard Burton or Morgan Freeman, each adaptation of the original text conveys the naivety of man without needing to draw on its own cultural context and modernity. H.G. Wells' novel introduces the looming Martian threat as something beyond our comprehension, something we can only fear, not fight against. The novel was surely a byproduct of its time, written during the growing paranoia surrounding a European invasion in the First World War. It was only fitting then that Wells' invaders be even more powerful and fearsome than the ever-present German threat. What the War of the Worlds plays off of so well is a very real sense of paranoia. Orson Welles' 1938 radio adaptation of the novel was met with its own backlash, as panicked listeners actually believed that a Martian invasion was imminent. Granted, this was probably due to the fact that Wells adapted the novel into a series of news flashes and presentations.
They come up with the idea of using news bulletins. Why not? It's 1 month after the Munich crisis.
Without a doubt, the most defining theme present time and again in each adaptation of the War of the Worlds is the aforementioned paranoia, the fear not of events which are taking place, but of potential for events.
We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
In the early years of the 21st century, there was an undoubtable sense of paranoia sparked by the events of 9/11. A fear of real-world conflict would once again set the stage for an iteration of the Martian War, but it's the way Steven Spielberg adapted the novel which remains so effective. What is most apparent upon watching the film is Spielberg's use of 9/11 imagery, of visual references to this infamous event. The use of New York and the ash which coats the face of Tom Cruise's protagonist are both effective, if a little heavy-handed references. However, the way Spielberg and director of photography Janusz Kaminski present the film is even more impactful. And this is because it's subtle.
Visually, I'm really proud of this movie because the work that I've done on this movie is so different from the work that I've done on other movies with Steven.
That's a great shot right there, Michael.
Save for the occasional sweeping VFX shot, the washed-out, faded visuals follow our characters in a handheld, amateurish motion. Each shot does not feel as though it's been choreographed to perfection, but rather that the camera is barely maintaining a view of our protagonist, like a documentary crew caught in the crossfire of a war between men and Martians. And while the limited shooting schedule forced Spielberg to improvise many shots on location, it is obvious that this style is a callback to the numerous hours of confronting footage we've all been witness to, filmed by terrified New Yorkers and their handycams. When Spielberg does leave the ground momentarily to study the alien invaders, he retains that spur-of-the-moment style. However, in this case, it is achieved not through improvisation, but what is perhaps its filmmaking polar opposite, pre-visualization. Taking advantage of the ILM team directly after completion of post-production on Revenge of the Sith, Spielberg is able to intricately plan every VFX shot, down to the tiniest move of the camera. Spectacle which was limited to mere letters on the pages of Wells's novel, or even by miniatures and stop motion in 1953, the team at ILM is able to bring to life using advanced computer-generated imagery. And not just hasty CGI which looks dated even a decade later, but intricately planned VFX shots which will no doubt stand the test of time, and already have for that matter. ILM not only takes advantage of modern VFX, but incorporates and improves on yesterday's movie magic. Miniature shots like those used in the 1953 adaptation, only far more realistic, are blended seamlessly with CG and on-set footage. Without delving too deeply into sound design, what Welles refers to only as a humming, a long loud droning noise, becomes an ominous, nightmarish cry in Spielberg's adaptation, signaling the approach of something intimidating and terrifying. Likewise, the thunderous score by John Williams incorporates juxtaposing bass-heavy and screeching ensembles, creating a heart-pounding chant to echo the equally tense scenes. And while you wouldn't call an orchestra contemporary, I'm sure you'd prefer it to this. Regarding how Spielberg adapts the plot itself for a modern audience, the inclusion of devices such as phones and video cameras contribute to the director's established post-9/11 society, where our first reaction to danger is to film it. Take this poor guy, for example. While minor details such as these are overshadowed by plot, visuals, or sound, or complaints about that ending, I believe they're important in building this world. They help us subconsciously believe in this 21st century society. Putting aside the fact that a Martian invasion is unlikely, we can believe that this is how it would occur. Spielberg's mirror image of a paranoid, post-9/11 culture reflects our stigmas and even fears, the same way Wells's novel did all the way back in 1898. And slowly, but surely, we begin to believe.